We find Boch hiding in the park, nervously planning her escape, when a sudden noise startles her. She thinks it's just the wind and recalls how Hera once told her, "Staying sharp is key to survival." But before she can regain her composure, Zombie Mother suddenly appears in front of her. Boch, in utter shock, exclaims, "Holy Mother of..." The Zombie Queen laughs at Boch's startled reaction and asks, "Did you just curse at your mother?" Boch stammers, I was just surprised. You nearly gave me a heart attack." Turns out, they were just playing hide and seek. With a mischievous grin, Zombie Queen locks eyes with Boch and asks, "You know what comes next, don't you?" Boch, gathering her nerves, steeled herself and replied, "Bring it on." Fast forward 6 months, thanks to the cure they received at Hope Village, Zombie Mother has gradually returned to her original self. And her transformation? It's been nothing short of remarkable. Now, every morning, Zombie Mother heads out for walks and exercise, enjoying the fresh air. At first, she was cautious, exercising for just 10 minutes. But now, she revels in 40-minute workouts. She used to hide from the sunlight, but now she goes out whenever she pleases, embracing life in the daylight. One afternoon, we see Zombie Mother showing off her acrobatics to Gomdoll and Boch during a picnic. These days, the three often spend time together, enjoying sunny picnics, long walks, and warm moments in the light of day. They train together, eat together, and even leave the lights on when they sleep. Life is as close to perfect as it gets. However, not everything is ideal. There are still challenges. For one, Zombie Mother can't quite pronounce words clearly yet. Despite her hard work, some words still get lost in translation. But the real problem? Boch can't stand how Zombie Mother clings to her after every game loss. At first, Boch put up with it for her mother's sake. But now, after just a few minutes, she's running away, shouting, "Somebody help!" Just then, Hera appears, swinging a bag at Zombie Mother and scolding her. "Why aren't you taking this training seriously? You're slacking off." The tension escalates quickly. They argue over whose training methods are best, pulling Boch into the debate. Both look at her, awaiting her input. Zombie Mother, with a soft but firm voice, says, "Stop it, you're scaring her. Let's teach her at a pace she can handle. Pushing her too hard won't be productive." Boch silently listens, trying to keep the peace. She hopes the argument doesn't escalate further. Hera, clearly frustrated, presses, "Come on, is this really what you call proper training? It seems more like indulgence than discipline." Zombie Mother counters with a gentle smile. "I admit, her cuteness sometimes throws me off track. But honestly, today's training was a success. I've noticed more progress than before." Hera responds, "The problem lies in treating training like a game. If we were more serious, we'd get better results." Zombie Mother sighs. "Don't you get tired of always being so serious? Think about her mental well-being." Hera's anger flares. "You've become too soft. Just because you can walk outside doesn't mean the world is safe." Zombie Mother snaps, "Stop glaring at me like that." "Never mind. I shouldn't be harsh on you considering your condition. I'll think about what you said. Happy now?" Hera, in a sharp tone, fires back. "You want to see for yourself? Follow me to the rooftop. I'll show you how well I'm doing." Boch, overwhelmed, yells, "Stop, both of you!" As they both grip her hand tightly, their bickering spiraling out of control. We then see Hera in a weakened state. Her injuries from past battles too severe to be fully treated. Her condition forces her to minimize physical activity, and she spends much of her time helping Boch with her studies. But there's a change in her demeanor. She's become more strict, scolding Boch for even the smallest mistakes. In one intense training session, Hera warns Boch not to show any mercy to her opponents, saying, "Kindness will get you killed. You must fight without hesitation." Boch, unable to hit Hera's weaknesses, apologizes, promising to do better. "Please don't give up on me." Hera, realizing how harsh she's been, feels guilty. "I'll never give up on you, just don't make this mistake again." For Boch, Hera's strict training has made her the toughest teacher she's ever had. Afterward, Hera gives Boch a chocolate bar but reminds her that in their family, anything found must be shared. Hera smiles and adds, "It's always good to have a backup plan." It's clear that Hera's tough love is driven by her desire to prepare Boch to survive in a harsh world. And Boch, she knows that, and she'll do everything she can to make her proud and become strong, just like her. Next, we catch a glimpse of Gomdoll, the breadwinner of the family. He's out scavenging, digging deep into dangerous hidden corners of the world to find supplies. But the trade isn't easy. Bandits often try to ambush him, cheat him, or steal his precious goods. But Gomdoll, he's a pro. With a list of must-have supplies in hand, Gomdoll is always on the move, hopping from place to place. His reputation for providing high-quality products has made him a sought-after trader. But not everything goes according to plan. We see Gomdoll captured by a group of thieves who threaten him with guns. Just as they're about to shoot, the guns malfunction, and the thieves freeze in shock. Gomdoll grins and tears through his ropes. "Did you really think I wouldn't have a backup?" He quickly teaches the thieves a lesson, and as the situation unfolds, we meet So-young, a woman who was once a prisoner of the same group. She thanks Gomdoll for helping her escape and admits, "This world is hell. There's no hope. But thanks to you, I can leave it all behind without regrets." With one final sorrowful glance, she shoots herself, leaving Gomdoll speechless and heartbroken. When Gomdoll returns home, greeted by his smiling daughter and wife, he feels a glimmer of hope amidst the despair. "I know this world is a nightmare, full of monsters and betrayal, but as long as I have my family, there's still hope. I am their husband, their father, and I'll protect them with everything I have." This moment of warmth is one of my favorite scenes in this manga. It's raw, real, and full of love in a world that's been stripped of it. What do you all think? Drop your thoughts in the comment box below. Now, Boch had come a long way. She had learned how to fight, use weapons, and even shoot a gun. She worked hard, but there was still so much to learn. It was undeniable. Boch had grown a lot. Fully armored and armed, Boch was ready for today's test. She was determined to pass and earn Hera's approval. But to her shock, Hera said, "There's no test today. Just come for dinner and return my kitchen knife. I need it to chop vegetables." Boch stood there, stunned. Hera explained that her parents would be late and that Boch could sleep with her that night. But Boch, still unsure, asked, "Won't you squeeze me to death when I sleep?" Hera chuckled. "What do you think of me? Why would I do that to you?" Boch hesitated. "I don't know. You're a human wiper. You can do anything." Hera laughed again. "You mean human weapon, but I promise I won't squeeze you. I know you're upset because I canceled today's test, but I'm not feeling well. When I feel better, we'll do it." Boch apologized for doubting her, then hugged her tightly before drifting off to sleep. But as Boch slept peacefully, the truth emerged. It was all part of Hera's plan. With her parents, Hera asked, "Why are you late?" Gomdoll, concerned, replied, "This might be too harsh for Boch." Hera was firm. "We have to do this for her. Move quickly before she wakes up." When Boch finally awoke, she was shocked to find herself alone in the middle of an abandoned building surrounded by monsters. A note lay beside her. She opened it. "If you're reading this, the test has already started. Do your best to stay alive. There is a walkie-talkie in the center of the building. If you reach it alive, we will come to your rescue." Fury surged through her. She tore the note, her eyes filling with tears. "Everyone's lying to me. They just want to abandon me." But then, she remembered Hera's advice. Familiarize yourself with your surroundings. Only then can you hide or find weapons to fight. Boch took a deep breath. "If I survive this, Hera's going to pay for lying to me." As she moved, a kitchen knife flew toward her, narrowly missing her head. Terrified, she peed her pants, seeing the monster holding the knife coming closer. Frantically, Boch tried to run but tripped and fell. We then see the monster unmask itself. It was Hera. Zombie Mother and Gomdoll watched from the sidelines, worried. "This might be too much for her," Gomdoll said. Hera reassured them. "We just want to scare her, not hurt her." Hera ordered the actors hired to play monsters. "The test has begun. Do better, and you'll get a bonus." Boch, hiding in a room, cried, "I miss home, and my pants are wet." She didn't know how to find the walkie-talkie with so many monsters around. But then, she remembered Hera's advice. Use her environment to her advantage, she thought. Nothing will change if I sit here and cry. Determined, she ventured out, looking for a weapon and pants. While scouting, she thought, I can make a slingshot with the stuff lying around. The place was crawling with monsters, humans in disguise. Suddenly, a rock flew and hit one of them. The others turned, startled, then began chasing Chuckbach for the bonus. I'm in trouble now, Chuckbach thought as she started firing rocks from her slingshot. A few hits landed, and Hera, watching from behind, wondered, how did she make that slingshot? Who taught her? Flashback. Chuckbach's grandpa had taught her to use a slingshot. This will be your secret weapon, he'd said. Chuckbach whispered, thanks, Grandpa. But then she realized she was out of rocks. Her ultimate weapon? Fire extinguisher powder she found while scavenging. This could work, she thought, grabbing some. Now, Chuckbach was getting the hang of things. She dodged the monsters, realizing they were much slower than her mom and weaker than Hera. I can do this, she thought as she reached the walkie-talkie. But just as she was about to grab it, Hera lifted her off the ground and slammed her into the wall. Hera approached, determined, thinking in her mind, what will you do when you encounter a strong monster, Chuckbach? Chuckbach, dazed and bruised, stood up thinking, I'm going to make it home. I'll be with Mom, Dad, and Hera. Suddenly, her eyes began to glow, and she unconsciously called upon the monsters outside the building. The horde of monsters rushed toward her. In seconds, the building was surrounded, monsters smashing windows and flooding inside. Everyone was in shock. How can there be so many monsters? Hera wondered. The timing, the change in Chuckbach's eyes, it could only mean one thing. This was her doing. The disguised monsters began fighting real monsters in a chaotic battle for survival. Hera grabbed Chuckbach and fled to the upper floors, while others with guns opened fire to reduce the monster threat. But Chuckbach, still struggling, was unaware of the chaos she'd caused. Zombie Queen stepped in, slaying monsters left and right. Stop talking and save your energy to protect Chuckbach, she shouted. I'll clear the area. Zombie Queen noticed the yellow tint in everyone's eyes. I know I've cleared all the monsters nearby. So, who called these new ones? Deep down, she knew Chuckbach had caused it. But how? How did Chuckbach possess such power? No one had ever seen anything like it. They began to regret their decisions, realizing they'd been too careless in underestimating her. They should have been more cautious. Just then, Hera winced in pain from a wound, but there was no choice. She had to keep fighting. The monsters overwhelmed Hera and the others. With desperation in her voice, Hera shouted, Someone please help Chuckbach! But something was off. No one had been killed. Her eyes widened in disbelief when she saw a monster handing Chuckbach the walkie-talkie. Every monster in the building was listening to Chuckbach's commands. A flashback revealed the moment Chuckbach had freed the villagers from the one-armed king's control. That sense of confidence flooded her again, a realization that she could do anything with that same powerful gaze. She'd practiced secretly, feeling the excitement of finally having a power that could take her home. But as she stood, Chuckbach felt her nose bleed. The power was taking a toll on her body. Why can't I control those monsters that attacked me? She wondered. They seemed different. The larger monsters sounded eerily like Hera, but Chuckbach quickly dismissed it as a delusion. No, focus, she thought. I need to control the monsters now. As she looked around, her gaze softened when she saw a small monster puppy. It was cute. Chuckbach gently patted its head, asking, Would you come home with me? There's so much food there. But suddenly, her eyes returned to normal. In that instant, all the monsters snapped back to their original selves. The puppy transformed into a giant, menacing wolf. It growled, ready to pounce. Panic spread through the room as everyone fled, realizing their mistake. Chuckbach, barely able to stand, felt helpless. The wolf monster lunged at her. This is it, she thought. I have to use my power again. But when she tried, a sharp pain tore through her head. Her vision blurred. Hera was rushing toward her, but Chuckbach, disoriented, thought she was under attack from monsters on both sides. She remembered happier moments with her family and realized, though she held the walkie-talkie, she didn't know how to use it. In a last-ditch effort, she cried out, Hera! Just then, Zombie Queen burst into action, attacking the wolf monster. Hera seized Chuckbach, pulling her to safety. As I promised, Hera said, I'll always come when you call for me. On the other side, Zombie Queen couldn't help but feel a little hurt that Chuckbach hadn't called for her. You've got your strong mom now, Chuckbach, she said, grinning. Now you protect weak Hera. Hera shot her a glare. We'll talk about that later. Gomdoll appeared, saying, "Let's go somewhere safe." The wolf monster, now furious, prepared to attack Zombie Queen. But in a commanding voice, Zombie Queen shouted, "Get lost, you bastard!" The wolf monster froze, its instincts telling it to retreat. Trembling, it turned into a small puppy and fled. "Now," Gomdoll said, "let's go home." Boch, still reeling from the trauma, hid in the bathroom. She refused to come out. Anger and hurt filled her heart as she muttered, "You all lied to me." Her parents stood outside trying to console her. "We're so sorry," they said. "We never intended for it to go this far. It was all part of your training, an actual setting test." Boch, shaking with rage, responded, "Stop making excuses. No parent would do this to their child." Gomdoll and Zombie Mother fell silent. Boch was right. They couldn't argue with that. Boch's voice cracked with emotion as she said, "You all lied to me, especially you, Hera. I hate you even more now." Hera, unshaken, retorted, "You're immature. I told you to adapt to your environment and survive. What would you have done if a real situation like this happened? Would you keep hiding behind your mother forever?" In a burst of anger, Boch stormed out of the bathroom and punched Hera in the face. "I hate you," she screamed. "You told me you never lied, but you did. Do you even know how scared I was?" Tears filled Boch's eyes as she added, "I really missed you so much." Hera, taken aback, smiled softly and sighed. "I'm sorry, Boch. I was too harsh. You passed the test. I promise I'll never do that again. Maybe tomorrow we can do something you like." Boch, exhausted, wiped her tears and said, "Okay, I don't hate you. I like you so much." And with that, she collapsed into a deep sleep. Later, as her parents talked, they revealed that all the people they had hired were killed by the real monsters while fleeing. Zombie Mother looked grim and said, "So, no one is left to witness, right? That's fortunate." I was stunned by Zombie Mother's coldness, but it was clear that in this world, weakness meant death. Meanwhile, the date of Hera's checkup was nearing, and they had to take her to the promised location. But with only one car available, Grandpa and Yu Jung had already left. The chaos of the day was followed by a tender moment in Chapter 81, filled with wholesome family moments. Boch dragged her parents and Hera out early the next morning, full of energy. She was giggling with excitement, planning to make them play every game she could think of as a form of punishment for lying to her. Everyone would listen to her today. With a smug smile, she announced, "Today's all about me. You all have to pray for what you did." Her parents tried to correct her. "It's pay, not pray, Boch." The scene shifted to the park, where Boch was having a blast playing house games. Hera was acting like a little child, and Boch played the mommy role. Zombie Mother and Gomdoll laughed nonstop at the hilarious antics. Hera playfully threatened Zombie Mother to stop laughing, but Zombie Mother teased her relentlessly. A mock fight broke out between them, with Gomdoll and Boch trying to break them up. They all laughed together, enjoying the day. On the sidelines, Zombie Mother and Gomdoll chatted about Boch's incredible energy. Gomdoll took notes, detailing Boch's powers, which she had shared the previous night. Zombie Mother asked for a quick rundown, since she'd missed the conversation while in the bathroom. Gomdoll briefly explained Boch's abilities. She could choose which monsters to control. She could control them for a short time, even at a distance. When she released control, the monsters would freeze for about 10 seconds and forget they were ever controlled. The longer she used her powers, the more it took a toll on her body. Nosebleeds, red eyes, and headaches. But she would recover after rest. Gomdoll then praised Zombie Mother for her progress with pronunciation and teased her about being terrible at acting tough. Zombie Mother's eyes softened as she opened up, confessing, "I'm sorry. Boch got these strange powers because of me. I'm afraid they'll cause her trouble living a normal life." She revealed that the night before, she'd locked herself in the bathroom, struggling to come to terms with Boch's powers. "As a mom, I can handle anything, but I can't bear to see Boch suffer." Suddenly, Gomdoll pointed to Boch, who was making funny faces to make everyone laugh. Her playful antics had everyone in stitches. Gomdoll, smiling, reassured Zombie Mother, "Just like you, Boch is strong, healthy, and resistant to infection. She's grown into someone who can protect herself. She's a special child, and she'll be just fine. We'll do our best as her parents." The day of fun came to an end, and with everyone exhausted but happy, they headed home, closer than ever. The scene shifts abruptly, revealing Yu Jung drenched in blood, desperately trying to escape the wreckage of the car. Her hands tremble as she struggles, and Grandpa can be seen, captured by a monster. Yu Jung's eyes widen in panic as she realizes the dire situation. She races to find the zombie mother and the others, but when she arrives at their home, no one's there. Time is running out. Desperate, she manages to find them and urges them to hurry. If they don't, Grandpa will die. A flashback takes us to the previous day. After days of carefully scouting and investigating monsters, Grandpa and Yu Jung were on their way home, exhausted from their journey. Grandpa sat in the car, shouting for help, but it was Yu Jung's novice driving that had them both in trouble. Then, with a jolt, the car flipped. Yu Jung regained consciousness only to find herself and Grandpa bound tightly in ropes. Grandpa, bleeding heavily but still cracking jokes, tried to lighten the mood, but Yu Jung snapped, yelling at him to stop and focus on the blood pouring from his wound. A chilling voice suddenly cut through the tension. "Pretty unscathed, huh?" The monster was back. It demanded they show off their worth, or die. The monster eyed them with malicious intent, noting it would be better if they had a child to offer. Grandpa, always quick-witted, shouted back in frustration, "Why are we the ones captured? They've got children and skills. Shouldn't you go after them instead?" He signaled Yu Jung to play along. "I'll bring them to you," Grandpa offered desperately. The monster, unconvinced, mocked him. "I want those guys," it growled. But Grandpa, sensing the urgency, quickly backtracked. "I'll leave my daughter behind. My daughter means everything to me. I'll bring them to you." The monster paused, then smirked, agreeing to the new condition. Yu Jung would have to do the dirty work. With the fate of Grandpa hanging in the balance, the family led by Yu Jung rushed toward the promised location to rescue him. As they approached, Yu Jung described the monster to them. She hadn't gotten a good look before, but she knew it was a female monster with bizarre feet, each with 4 toes. She also noticed that tentacles sprouted from the sides of the monster's head. Suddenly, without warning, one of the tentacles snatched Boch from Hera and darted off. Boch cried out in panic, shouting for help, but the female monster's voice was strangely familiar. "What are you doing here?" she asked, shocked as she looked at Boch closely. The realization hit her like a hammer. This was the same monster that Zombie Mother had spared all those months ago in the underground dungeon. Back in the car, panic gripped the family as they desperately tried to catch up with the female monster. Hera, struggling to breathe, cursed herself for being so weak, silently praying that Zombie Mother would be the one to save Boch. Meanwhile, Zombie Mother, tireless and unyielding, was hot on the trail. But she soon realized that the female monster had planned this all along. She knew the area far too well to hide so quickly. Zombie Mother's heart tightened with fear as she realized that if she didn't find Boch soon, it might be too late. "Just wait a little longer, Boch. Your mom's coming to save you." The female monster, growing increasingly fearful, knew that if she were caught, she would be torn apart by Zombie Mother. But turning back wasn't an option. Even if she returned Boch, she knew she would still be killed. She steeled herself and took Boch to meet her client, who waited with a malicious grin. "I brought you what you asked for," the female monster called out. "Now give me my kids." But the hat monster wasn't having it. "Only this girl is worth anything to me. All your other products have been defective," he sneered. The female monster's heart sank as the hat monster grinned wickedly, making it clear that he had no intention of honoring his end of the bargain. Furious, the female monster shouted, "Enough with your games. I want my children back." But the hat monster was ruthless. He showed her kids, locked up and crying in pain. "If you don't cooperate," he threatened, "I'll make sure your children suffer even more." The female monster froze, her heart breaking at the sight of her precious children in agony. A flashback unfolds, revealing the female monster's lonely, hollow existence. After failing her mission in the underground dungeon, she went into hiding, lost and miserable. But when she found the children, something changed. At first, she had planned to fatten them up and devour them later. But the more she spent time with them, the more attached she became. They were wild, causing chaos, making her clean up after their constant squabbles. But they filled the emptiness inside her. One day, after she'd gone out to get their favorite food, she returned to find a monster devouring her children. Rage consumed her as she attacked the beast, but it was no match for the Hat Monster's strength. The Hat Monster captured her children and offered a cruel bargain. Bring him more high-quality people, or he would keep them captive. From that day on, the female monster's life became a nightmare. She fought tooth and nail to bring back more people, but the Hat Monster always deemed them defective and kept her kids locked up. Every failure, every heart-wrenching defeat wore her down, and she wondered if she should just give up. Could she abandon them? Let them die? The thought tormented her. But when she saw them suffer, she knew there was no choice. She would endure anything, as long as she didn't have to see her children in pain. Tears welled in her eyes as she begged the Hat Monster to release them. "I'll do whatever you want. Just stop hurting them." Boch, witnessing all this, couldn't help but draw a painful parallel. She's just like my mother, Boch thought, a sudden realization dawning. She's not the monster I thought she was. In the next episode, Boch and Dayan join forces to take down the Hat Monster and rescue the children. But the clock is ticking. Will Zombie Mom find Boch before it's too late? Can Hera survive her critical injuries? And the biggest twist yet, the truth behind the mysterious villain group will finally be revealed. Don't miss the suspense, action, and shocking secrets in the next episode. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. See you next time.